Okay, Jake is traveling for work this week, so we're going to try to film a few things here. He might want to edit part of this out, but he can make that decision when he gets home. We're working on the clutch brake uh, assembly in the 55 in the race car, and it's a Jerry Bickel kit that we bought about 30 years ago, and we're going to get into a little bit of what happens over a 30-year period when you stretch a project out that far, I guess. So let me show you the first thing here. This is the brake and the clutch pedal, and it comes as an assembly, and this bar is for activation of the clutch and the brake pedal. As you can see here, this brake pedal is set up for bearings that it actually pivots on this shaft on the bearings. The bearings that we're using are a S612 INA shell needle bearing, and it's pretty important that we make these roller bearings fit properly into this with nothing. We don't want anything binding up or super loose, but I think it's better to be just a tick loose. These bearings to be just a tick loose in the tubing for the brake pedal, and then the clutch pedal is made so that you drill a hole into the clutch, through the clutch pedal and through this rod, through this bar, and this bar actually pivots with the clutch pedal to and we'll get into this a little bit later. I'll show you what we're going to do. There's a tube that comes off this, an adjusting tube linkage that goes to the cross shaft that goes into the bell housing. And when you pivot this shaft, it actually disengages and engages the clutch as the shaft pivots with the clutch pedal. But the brake pedal is a separate piece altogether, and it rides on these bearings. One of the things I was talking about, if you stretch a project like this over this long period of time, there's a little nick right there. Well, that little nick puts enough pressure on those bearings to kind of bind it up inside this tube, and at the same time it binds it up on the shaft for the bearing shaft that this should pivot freely on. I'll show you a little bit of what's going on here. On this side, the side with the nick, you can see that it goes to right about there. It goes to right about there, and it's snug. It's pretty tight, and you can see it's pivoting on this point right here. It's got just a little bit of a press place in it. On the other side, you can see the bearing goes in just like that, which is what we want. So it's got enough tension on it, enough resistance on it to kind of keep the bearing in place, but it don't have the bearing pressed down so it binds up on this shaft. So, all right, I'm just going to take this an old brake master cylinder home, and that nick is right here, and I don't want to go past this too far. I don't want to open that side up because it's in pretty good shape, so I'm going to try to keep the hone back in this area inside this, and just kind of just open that up enough so it won't bind the bearing up when we put it in. So that's improved, but it's still not there. That chrome moly is pretty tough, so it'll probably take a little bit more than. Okay, it's about an hour after we first started this operation. Ended up taking this and putting it in the jaws of the vise and squeezing that. It was a little egg shaped on the outside. Then it got in a little further and it didn't bind up, but it bound up at about that distance right there. It started binding up again. So I got to looking into it, and these wells had kind of distorted the inside just in the center. So I dug around and found another brand new cylinder hone that I had, and I spent quite a bit of time in the center. You can still feel a little bit of a ridge where that weld has distorted that tube just a little bit. But we ended up, after, like I say, about an hour, we've got this where it's pretty much the way I want it. And the main thing is, the shaft goes through it, and when it gets through it, it's rotates fairly freely. Okay, these bosses didn't come with the kit. We put these on to be in line so that this bar will go through it like that. And this lever will attach with linkage to the lever on the bell housing. And I'll show you a little bit more about that in a second. But right now I'm just going to put same kind of shell bearings goes in these bosses here. I'm just going to put one in each. Probably there'll be two end up in this one. And I've already got the one on the end of this one out here. So what we're going to do now is just put this shaft. This shaft is way too long, so that's what we're going to try to figure out, is how much to cut off the shaft and where to put the retaining ring grooves in this shaft. There'll probably be I don't know, 2 or 3 different retaining ring grooves to keep these bearings from going out of place when it's being used in the car. So see if we can get this thing assembled. It's a little tedious, but I think we can manage it. And like I say, the clutch goes on the outside here, goes on this side, so it's going to end up looking something like that. Okay, this is you've seen this before. This is the brake master cylinder here under this cover, and this assembly, this linkage here goes between the brake pedal and the master cylinder. That's about the position it'll end up. Now the next thing is we're going to have to deal with. So this is the linkage that comes with the Jerry Bickel kit, and it comes assembled at this point. They've welded a nut on here so you can adjust it. It's got left and right hand threaded heim joints. This is going to attach between those two levers. The engine's backed up a lot in this thing. The pedals are pretty far forward to get us to where we can mount the seat where it's mounted. But this is going to be mounted something like this. As you can see, that assembly is much too long. So what we're going to do, I'm going to modify that. Use this end that's already got the boss welded in it, the heim joint boss welded in it. I'm going to cut it off, reuse this nut, cut a bunch of this assembly out. I'm going to try to figure out exactly, well, it's going to be pretty adjustable, so we should be able to get it close enough so that the adjustment will take care of the length, the overall length, when we get this set. The other thing is, and I'm thinking that we may have to put the transmission in the car, because the clutch fork that attaches to this cross shaft that goes into the bell housing centers on the front bearing retainer for the Lenco. Anything else is going to be kind of an eyeball deal. I may be able to put that clutch fork in and center it in the hole and then see exactly where this is going to end up. That's not real critical, because I can't do anything with this, and there's enough adjustment, enough travel in these balls that should take care of any misalignment that we end up with between this lever and this lever. But it's going to be kind of in that neighborhood. That's about the way it's going to be. This may be back a little bit further all according to where this shaft ends up, so that the nut or the head of the bolt don't come in contact with the bell housing when the clutch is being applied. Okay, this is my first estimate as to the length. We rescued the nut off of it, bored the tube out, got it faced so we can weld it back on. Like I say, one of the bungs was already welded on. That was the right-hand thread. This is the left-hand thread that will go into this tube, and we should be able to finish that up. That's a absolute guess on the length. I ended up cutting all of the back side of the nut where it was welded on the full-length tube. So this is just an estimate on what we're going to need when we finish, but it's a starting point. Both adjusters are screwed all the way in, so that's as short as it will go. We may have to shorten it a little bit further, but it's going to end up something like that. I don't know exactly how far the front lever on the cross shaft and the bell housing is going to be. I don't know how much travel it's going to need. Thought I'd show you this cross shaft that came out of the bell housing. I told you these, see if I can get a little better shot of these splines. That shaft that goes through that clevis is spline, so it's adjustable, very fine spline. You can adjust it in very small increments if you need to. So I'm not going to weld that clutch linkage that we shortened right now. I think I'm going to wait till we finalize, put the engine in the car, mount the clutch, the flywheel, and put the transmission in. There's openings in this bell housing that you can make these kind of adjustments with. Let me get around here. You can see this opening in the bell housing. You can pretty much get down in there and do any adjustments that you need to do. We should be able to maybe move his clutch fork around and do different things. In worst case, we can slide the transmission back away from the bell housing and slide that cross shaft out of the car, but we'll have to remove the clutch fork before we do that. So it's that's going to be part of the learning process. This is new stuff to us. We've always ran a Paraglide in this car, and this is the first straight drive, and by far the most complicated straight drive I've ever had any dealings with. This Lenco's all brand new stuff to me, so this is something we're going to have to get an education on, so we're just going to kind of take it slow and figure it out as we go.
I am back. So I know Mom and Dad have been working on this brake pedal assembly while I was gone, and right now you can hear in the background Dad is over here building his oil light bronze bushings that he's making for each end of this brake and clutch pedal assembly. So these will basically be the retainers, and the other good part about them being made out of oil light bronze is that they are basically self-lubricating, so they won't bind, they won't cause any sort of issue, and then all we'll have to do, building it up the way that we're planning to do it, you can literally remove one snap ring and pull this whole settle, this whole pedal and bearing assembly out in one shaft. So that's what we're working on right now. That's what he's working on right now. So he's got this oil light bronze that he's turning down. He's going to go ahead and get those cut off so that we can put them on each end of that shaft that he's measuring right now. So he'll have to cut, and we'll have to bore this out to the right inside diameter. He's already got the outside turned down, I believe. So they will rest here and then out here on the end, and will be held in place with some of those lock rings that he, not that one, some of those lock rings that he has laying around here somewhere. So if you guys missed me, I'm glad to be back. If you didn't, sorry, I'm back. Alright, so Dad has kind of simplified what he had planned a little bit. So when he was talking about getting this rod put in place, he was talking about using those spiral locks or the C-clips to hold these bearings in place. But instead of trying to do this and having to make sure that everything gets, super precise, and that everything that you get those cuts into that rod exactly where they need to be, we simplified it a lot. So here on this first one, you can see this is literally just a piece of aluminum that fits very tightly here, because this is here, we have our oil light bronze bushing over here, This is an aluminum spacer that'll keep these bearings located in these two pockets here. The second bearing that's in here will get located by the brake shaft, or by the brake pedal, the shaft here that's holding the brake pedal. He's currently building us another one, and then he will have this last oil light bushing out here on the end of that with one C-clip there that will hold this whole assembly in place. We'll cut the rod off somewhere over here, and then all we have to do is, if we need to remove this, you can slide the transmission back, slide all that out instead of having to try and keep track of all these C-clips and everything that we were talking about. We'll just have to pull this one C-clip off, and then the whole thing will slide right out. Right there's what that guy looks like, and he's gonna pull it out now and add it in. That looks really good. So you can see those space everything. That'll keep the brake pedal from moving left or right. It'll keep those bearings in the housings they need to be in. And then that last one's the clutch pedal, which will be staked into that rod. And then we'll cut it off, use another oil light bronze bushing over there.
No,
and
I'm just going to put a seat.
Oh, you're just going to put a seat clip there?
I checked it. There's no use in using that because this is going to. That
It's
seat
not
clip will
moving.
it'll stay with this, and this moves with that shaft.
Right, yep.
If you
that
move
makes
this,
sense.
it moves the shaft so that it stays right there. That's all we need.
Now Dad thought he was going to have to make a new cutter, but it turns out he already had this one that is the right width for one of those C-clips, wherever it is. So anyway, so he's swapping out the cutter he had in this tool holder here, and he's going to put this one in. We took a Sharpie and marked right where that needs to be to put that C-clip in. So that's be the next step here, is using this guy to cut that notch.
If I cut that 75 thousandths deep, so that's 73 thousandths.
73 thousandths.
It's 42 thousandths thick.
Okay.
C-ring is about 42,
Okay.
42, 43. And that cutter,
It's right there.
a little bit wide, it should just clearance it.
That's pretty nice you had that.
Yes.
This holder kind of runs like a wedge. You take that Allen key and you can slide that back into it a little bit, and then you tighten that Allen key and it wedges and locks this into that holder. Yeah, you can see it better on this side. There we go. Yeah, so it's tapered. So when you move that Allen key, it moves this, which pushes this back and wedges this tool into the holder. That also has his live center in here supporting the end of this. So this whole unit here, you can see how that turns, and this will also be turned in. So we got to make sure we don't get it in anything into it. Now he zeroed out his dial. Slowly cutting into it.
Too low.
Mm. What made you say it was too? I mean, like, what made you realize it was too low? Okay.
Started grabbing the cutter.
So he raised the whole
Let's raise this.
assembly up. really good. Alright, we got the whole assembly back in here. That will, remember, it's okay for this to have some play in it because that's going to get a hole through it and get pinned into this rod. So it's okay that there's a little slack there. So it is a few days later, and after we took some pictures and kind of thought about this pedal assembly a little bit more, it was really on Dad's mind that there was something wrong. Something didn't look right. Something just wasn't right about this whole assembly. And if you guys were paying attention, you probably noticed it, and you probably noticed that the clutch pedal looked oddly far away from the brake pedal, and that's because it was. So let's check that out. So if we look over here at this, we have got it fixed. We had this clutch pedal assembly over here on this side, which is where we cut that groove in the shaft, when it actually needed to be like this. This clutch pedal actually goes inside of the brake pedal and this boss on the chassis, and that brings your clutch pedal to a much more reasonable distance from your brake pedal, which makes this way, way better, because if that clutch pedal was sitting like right over here, these fingers, there, if you pay attention or go back and look at it. So we got this moved over, so we did a little extra work. We didn't actually end up needing this spacer because that spacer is where the clutch pedal needed to be sitting. But that's okay, just a little extra work there. No big deal, got it moved over. We're gonna put that oil-like bronze bushing on the end of this. So we're gonna mark this and cut a new snap ring joint there, and then that will get us what we need to get this kind of to a stopping point. We still need to make this linkage, but there's a lot of what ifs about where everything's gonna land inside the bell housing with our cross shaft and all that. So it's probably going to end up coming at a little bit later time, but for now, we'll go ahead and pull this assembly back apart one more time and get that ring cut, and then we will probably wrap it up for this week. Right, so you can see there is our C-clip holding all this assembly in place. That's letting that go here. This will rotate this whole rod, as you've seen many times now. This rotates super smoothly and freely. Now the only thing we have left is two things. We're going to cut off this rod, and then we have to drill a hole into this pedal through this rod so that it'll actuate the rod, but all that's going to come at a little later time. But we are going to go ahead and pull this out, get it cut off, and that'll have at least this much out of our way. And then the only thing we'll have to do is once we get at least the engine block mocked up back into the car, then we can set our angles and linkages and then drill this hole finally. So that'll come later on. So we used our horizontal bandsaw here because of the clutch lever on this side. It's going to make it pretty hard to put it into the lathe and cut it off and actually catch it. So we put it in here. This thing cuts pretty darn square. So we'll get it pulled out, and that should have it. We've got this lastly. Turned out, for some reason, it became more serious once we got this whole rest of this shaft cut off. As you can see, this turned out super, super well. And I know this looks like a small job, but there was a lot of work here. And to be honest, there's still quite a bit of work to do on it to get everything linked up and get everything adjusted how we need it to be. So, alright y'all, that is going to wrap us up this week. We got that whole pedal assembly put in there. You got to hang out with Mom and Dad a little bit at the beginning of the video too. Again, these jobs, some of them look small, but they involve a lot of different work and a lot of different thoughts and ideas to try and get everything how you want it. And sometimes you even end up having to do things a couple times to try and get it wrapped up how you want it to be. But at this point, that assembly is ready to go, and we're ready to kind of get it adjusted how it needs to be once we get the clutch and everything in there and mocked back up. So we'll continue to plug away on this thing one job at a time. And probably next time you're going to see us working on some sheet metal for this thing, and we're going to do some drilling and get some sheet metal pulled out, and we're going to make that riser for our feet so that we've got a place to put our feet so they land on the pedals well. So that'll all be the next time we work on this thing. So make sure to hit that subscribe button, follow along. We are going into a lot of detail on each part of this as we get this car ready to go back to the racetrack as soon as possible. Make sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all those places, and we'll see you next week.